a man was living well, and suddenly he died. So he's being taken up by God's representative, and he stands in a gate. On the right hand side, God says, this is heaven, and left hand side he says, this is hell. So the guy says, okay, but you have an induction in both. So choose whichever you want. Because you have done some good, you have done some bad, so choose what you want. So okay, the guy went to hell and saw them, playing squash, drinking, and music and dance and all that. He said, wow, great place to be. And then he came to heaven, and he saw some people sitting around trees, chatting and working, sitting on their computers, sitting on and washing their own clothes. So this man said, this is not the place to be in. So he went to God and said, I want to be here. So God said, oh, great. He went in, come join next day. So next day he comes in. There is God standing and says, go and start grinding stone. So he says, what? He says, take the stone, break it into bits, and come and start putting it into the oven. This guy is amazed, and he finds everyone sweating and pulling and working. He says, what the hell is this? You showed me something else. He says, that was pre-placement talk, my dear son. This is the way you have to work. We wanted to attract you as the best talent into this company, and then we'll show you what to do. So to that extent, everywhere you attract talent in a similar way, but what is it which is holding them back in the company? What are the sort of practices which you create for yourself, which distinguishes you or which you are distinctly different from others? Look, Japanese way of defining innovation is something which I really love. Innovation in the Western world is breakthrough. If there's a breakthrough, identification is innovation. But Japanese saw it differently. They said step-by-step improvement combined with something big. And if you're able to sustain that step-by-step, that is innovation and continuous improvement. So to that extent, I think starting off this conclave with session on innovative HR practices is apt and appropriate. And with me, we have two speakers who, with a wealth of experience, bring in their experience and share what is it they have done in their organization, and also what they believe can make these HR practices innovative and sustainable for themselves as an organization. And both have been successful in what they do. So sharing of their experiences is something which we'll all look forward to. The way it will structure is we'll have 15 to 20 minutes for each speaker, which is Pramod and Dabas, and then we will conclude with concluding remarks and some question and answers from the audience. Why I'm restricting it to 15-20 minutes is we want to give an opportunity for interaction with the audience, and that is what is more critical in such conclaves. Pramod, all yours.
Thank you, Raju. Very good morning. Wonderful to have you all here. The reason I take part in such sessions is this august audience bringing some good thought leadership sends me back to some research and tapping on knowledge. I thought I'll deal with this issue of sustainable but high impact leadership as part of this 3J innovative practices. I'm not, I repeat, not going to give you a checklist or a laundry list of what are the 10 best practices. 20 minutes it is. I'm going to give a little thought leadership on what's happening in this space based on some research. And wonderful introduction by Raja. We didn't talk to each other as to what he's going to talk, but just see how thoughts match. The first thing I want to talk about is the state of business. These are the 4 frameworks in the next 20 minutes. Here's the state of business. And just in case you thought I'm going to give you some P&L figures, IRR and NPV and ROI, let me take you to the world of animal kingdom and animal planet. So every morning in Africa, a gazelle wakes up. It knows it must run faster than the fastest lion or it will be killed. Every morning a lion wakes up. It knows it must outrun the slowest gazelle or it will starve to death. Ladies and gentlemen, it don't matter whether you're black or white, or when the sun comes up, you'd better be running. So what's this dramatic statement early morning in this very intellectual audience? Exactly the proof of concept that Raja was talking about. These were mergers, acquisitions, hostile takeovers, leveraged buyouts, which happened in the oil and gas industry, early 80s. Net result, 1 million jobs lost. Some recent data. These are some more of those, what he said, X buying out Y, X and Y then being bought out by Z. That's happening in that space. Watch this. Look at the deal sizes and look at the job cuts. So wither HR practices, employee retention, and morale building. Closer home, and if you can see the right-hand column of job cuts not there because in India they're not published data. Maybe so many jobs are not lost, but these are closer home what happened in terms of mergers and acquisitions. Wonderfully depicted by this motif, not mine, but the guru himself, Warren Buffett. He says, you only learn who's swimming naked when the tide goes out. Lesson being, when the success story is on, every company is having Cuban cigars and French wine and Hawaiian cruises. When there is an M&A, when there's 3 games of golf, 2 beers, 1 handshake on a golf ground, an M&A happens and jobs get killed. And therefore, when 2008 happened, a subprime happened, and the entire Lehman Brothers, etc., that's when you got to know the real strength of companies which talked about employees are my largest assets. They are the best thing. And therefore, I would like to just briefly introduce a contextual backdrop with that as a background. This is a wonderful, simple graph which shows a very wonderful piece of data. The bar diagrams depict the first term. Radio as a product took 38 years to hit a user base of 50 million users. Radio as a product took 38 years. The PC took 16 years to reach 50 million users. 13 years was the television, and the web took just 4 years. I shudder to imagine a 5th block there called the mobile phone. Maybe it was in less than a year, which hit 50 million. That's the pace you and I are working against. Number 1 message. Number 2, doesn't matter what business you are in, what's the mandate, what's the customer saying. The customer is not asking, what can you do for me? He's asking, what else can you do for me? When you go to a campus, the students are asking, what else, Mr. XYZ company, how are you different from somebody else? And that else, like in Delhi they say, aur batao ji, right, is nothing but the quintessential differentiator. When you hire an employee, you are looking for what else. The employee is asking what else. Be it a watch or a pizza or an ice cream, else is very critical. The third piece, you and I are dealing with this kind of employees today. Ye dil mange more. I want it here, want it now, want it all. The Facebook, the Orkut, the 3G generation. It's called the world of instant gratification. I want it now and here. And therefore, turnover, attrition, people are in the race to get that. There's a wonderful slide which actually shows the reason for the innovativeness. If you look at the yellow pad as a canvas of your job, a DNA of your job, there's a technical quotient, a behavioral quotient, and over the 25 years, starting as an engineer trainee, when you go on to become a CEO, what happens in the 25-year career span? The box, ladies and gentlemen, cuts in the following way. And what's the demand? So you go on to an assistant manager, manager, AVP, senior VP, and what have you. But some of you get stuck. Some people get stuck because as the box shows, as you graduate over the years, you got to make this transition. And what is this right-hand top piece where the CEOs operate? Vision, strategy, decision-making, team building, not cracking algorithms or Excel spreadsheets. But a lot of us revel under the arrogance of intellectual supremacy, so we do not graduate to the soft skills area where the behavioral quotient calls for a big ask, call for a growth. And therefore, you get stuck. This is the piece I was talking about. Went and did some research. This was a Boston Consulting Group and WFPMA, World Federation of Personal Managers Association, a survey done through web. In 83 countries and markets, 4,741 professionals interviewed. They came up with top 8 challenges, the 3G stuff, in the next 5 years, 2010 to 2015, in 3 broad areas. But this is not the thing. You know these 3 things. What goes on? What are those 8 steps which goes on to do this? Those are three blocks. For want of time, I'm not going to expand it. You understand that. Those three constitute the attraction and the retention piece. Anticipating change when you're not there ahead of the curve is when you get bought out. Your stock margin goes down, PE ratio goes down, like an eagle out on a prowl, a company gobbles you up, as he rightly said, and you're dead. Anticipating change is a big thing. And in today's organization, the last piece, if you're not a learning organization, you have no chance. Employees are not going to stick around for that extra dollar because people are into intellectual net worth building apart from financial net worth building. Look at this now, a horrible data. Those 8 pieces have been mapped on 2 axes. One, the future importance from low to high, and 2, on the x-axis, the current capability from high to low. Does it shock you, ladies and gentlemen? Is there a call for an action to tell you those 8 steps are in the red triangle, which is actually saying strong need to act now? Those 8 pieces, which are those 8 pieces? These 8 pieces, so much is their future importance, as if that's not intimidating a challenge enough, the current capability is not there. And therefore, any of these 3G practices will need to address in that upper right quadrant. This is not my theory, it's a data from 4,741 professionals by Boston Consulting Group. So the 3G world, quickly. What has happened? Rising profile, talent crisis, as you rightly said, aging workforce, increasing global worker mobility. So 3 things, I won't read the whole slide. 1, business models will change dramatically. And there are examples replete. Nokia is today no more the company it was. Suddenly a Macro Max and a Carbon Mobile comes, sponsor 3 matches, and they've eaten to the market share. Lion and a deer story, my first slide. People management will become an imperative of business challenges, not a sidey function. Therefore, HR guys today have a seat at the table on the board because you add value, create value, and you add value. Very critical. Those bullets you can read for yourself. But most important, the role of HR will go fundamental changes. With this, let me now come to the crux of my presentation. Again, dipped into my research and did a wonderful exposition of a theory by PricewaterhouseCoopers. They've done a phenomenal study. There'll be 3 worlds by 2020. They've juxtaposed individualism versus collectivism, and juxtaposed this equation with, hold your breath, integration versus fragmentation. This analysis throws up 3 worlds which you and I are going to be part of. Are you ready? Which are the 3 worlds? The first one, a confluence of fragmentation, individualism, and collectivism, is going to be the orange world. Source is PwC. The collectivism integration throws up the green world. And the last is the blue world. And in next 3-4 slides, I'll tell you what it means for and what is the 3G challenge. The first one, the big company capitalism. What does this mandate? Big company, global players, consumer preference dominates. Corporate career separates the haves from the have-nots. Corporate is king. What does it take to manage people in the blue world? Those are some of the points. Basically, huge thrust on retention, high leadership team focus, robust metrics and analysis. Everything is going to be metered and metriced. Technology pervades, and management of people becomes hard business discipline. The green world, how many of you are aware the passing out batch of Harvard Business School last year signed an oath they will not join an organization which is in the business of directly or indirectly destroying the planet. You want your children and grandchildren to live. You don't want to be the ye dil mange more, me, my world, leaving nothing for, as the advertisement shows on petrol. Kyun bete ke liye kuch nahi chodoge kya? It's about the planet. Profit, people, and planet. The green world is going to be that. And the best example is Harvard guys deciding, I'm not going to touch a campus job which is indirectly destroying the planet. Companies care, it's the green world, all right? What does it take to manage people in the green world? New graduates looking for employees with strong environmental and social credentials. HR to play a key role. Uphold corporate values. HR function redefined being a senior member of the company's executive team. HR function dedicates significant energy to generating virtual social networks. And the last one, and this is brutal one, If you've seen Social Networking, the movie, you'll probably relate with this. It's this whole orange world. Companies begin to break down into collaborative networks of smaller organizations. Home office in the US is very common. Global business fragment, localism prevails, technology empowers, and most important, networks prosper. What does it take to manage people in the orange world? You run the risk of HR probably becoming more of an outsourced kind of an organization. Employees and relationships have across their networks. Companies seek to promote and sustain people networks. Employee contracts are flexible to accommodate staff churn. It's a reality. He works in a BPO industry, 50, 60, 70% of the turnover. Wow, the guy goes for $1,000 increase because he's not wanting to work here for next 60 years. At 40, he wants to quit and write a book or make a movie or go to the Himalayas. This is a snapshot of, if you take resourcing and succession on the left side, talent management, employee engagement, reward, obviously it's too complex a slide, but it shows a differentiation between the three worlds. What does it take and what happens in these three worlds? So, growth engines, therefore, what is it that takes to growth engine? Strategic business partnership. You got to be there understanding the P&L and financials. I don't have a seat if I'm not there. Of course, talent acquisition. Churches have become talent hunting grounds. Wedding receptions have become talent hunting grounds. Apart from monsters and the Naukris. You come out with the most innovative, LinkedIn, Google, what have you, Facebook, right? The entire social networking theory. Training and development, having got the guy in, it's got to be cutting edge. People, ladies and gentlemen, are interested in intellectual net worth development. Am I learning? Am I growing? Am I at the cutting edge? The toughest job, they say, is extracting performance, whether it's a maidservant or an employee at the office. Wonderful quote. I don't know what the hell was this author doing on personal management, but he says, not everything that counts can be counted, and not everything that can be counted counts. Guess who said this? Not a personal manager, but Albert Einstein. Cutting at the crux. What is measurable? My blood group, my height, my weight. Does it count? Doesn't count. What counts? Integrity, vision, teamwork, laziness. Can you count it? Can't count it. Give me a break. In 30 minutes, you got to make a selection? Not possible. And you go on to evaluate a performance. I believe 60% of resignations are conceived within first hour of the appraisal meeting getting concluded. HR systems and operations, employee engagement, and most important, the people process synergy. These are by and large, you can give it what name you want, right? The growth engines, which we need to have in terms of 3G generation. As I said, I'm not going to give a list. And lastly, I've got about 6 minutes. How do you crack this leadership code? I mean, it's all about really mapping that organization workforce, capping the emotive energy, and then guiding it. Rest is technical details, tools, systems, and metrics. The companies which breast the tape in the race for excellence and companies which become, also rants, the difference is just the way they manage. While I was on my flight here yesterday from Mumbai, my co-passenger was a young girl who passed from HR college. She just joined Google. Google hires graduates. I mean, she was all energy and all this newness about the whole thing, how they manage. I was really wanting as a student to learn from this 21-year-old young girl, what do you guys do there on managing HR people? It's tapping that emotive workforce. So you and I want to start a business. In the next 3 months, you need to understand 3 things. You've got to understand money, the financial resource. You've got to understand technology, and you've got to understand people. Fortunately, I'm in the business of this, and I thoroughly enjoy. I'm not a frustrated finance guy who's been parked in HR. I'm not a failed marketing guy who's been accommodated in HR. I thoroughly love HR because no two people react the same. So if you take these 3 forces which actually work in an organization, the man, the machine, and the money, most companies are struggling to deal with the confluence of the 3 things. Either you're very, very human-oriented, organizations where it's okay what meritocracy, God is there, your brother, I'm sister, no sacking, no nothing. Whereas companies say, some companies, like the high-end technology, 1 mistake, you're out. Second company says, 1 mistake not out, but second mistake, we got to have chat, third mistake, you're out. Some companies have finessed the art of sacking people through technology. Your swipe card doesn't work, ladies and gentlemen, next morning you go to office. Technology. The boss doesn't want to meet you. You swipe it and the door doesn't open. What happened? The receptionist said, just a minute. And the next thing you see is the HR manager coming in with two things, a file and a collapsed carton. Do I need to see you more? And then the